Apparently, some students in California might be getting their sea legs soon because the housing shortage in California has gotten so bad that one university is considering placing students on a barge on the water. Washington Post reported that at California State Polytechnic University at Humboldt, officials are considering renting a barge, a large boat typically used to carry cargo, and anchor it to a nearby bay for students to live on. So I know you're all wondering, how exactly are they gonna make this work? So I've got a little bit more for you from what their plan potentially might be. Miles Slattery, the city manager in nearby Eureka, said he and school officials have been looking at two multi-story barges that are about 300 feet long and 90 feet wide. Slattery expects the barge would house about 600 to 800 students in 150 to 300 rooms and would feature a cafeteria and a gym. And for anybody who's wondering if these students are gonna get seasick, fortunately, the barge would be anchored securely, so it would be sedentary and it would also have sewage and electricity. Now, some students thought this was just a rumor, but once it was confirmed that the university was in fact considering this as an option, a lot of students were skeptical of the plan, including Lars Hansen, who said in a statement, "It's seeming like they want to use this as a general living situation, which in that case, how are you supposed to get from the boat to campus?" And that is a very legitimate concern, considering the barge would be about 8 or 10 miles away from the campus. So finding transportation for the students would be challenging. But the school wants you to know that it's at least close to restaurants, shops, and bars. So if they decide to skip their classes, they can just hang out at the bar with their friends instead. But some of the students aren't buying this, and they've been protesting the plans actually. And on February 8th, they held a protest on campus with some carrying signs that read, "Don't put us on a freaking prison boat." Now, which is awesome. But the problem, the problem is that there isn't enough housing for the students, and their enrollment has been growing. So according to school spokesman Grant Scott Goforth, this year, 5,858 students are enrolled at the Arcata California College, and the university can house about 21,000 students on campus. So because of that growing enrollment, returning students won't even be guaranteed on-campus housing next school year, which the university announced this month. Now, from the Washington Post, according to a 2021 State Assembly report, between 5 and 20% of students at California's public colleges and universities reported experiencing homelessness. Some students have lived in trailers and in vans. Now, Cal Poly Humboldt has already used hotel rooms as dorms and is considering doing the same with unoccupied apartments and commercial buildings. A year ago, school officials even considered turning a cruise ship into dorms. What I think is really disappointing about the story, all the goofs and gaffs aside, is that there are empty apartment buildings close to the campus, if not on campus, that are just sitting empty where no one is living, that can't be used to house these students. It's a funny story, but it's disappointing and really highlights the housing crisis in California. Cenk.
Yeah, so I'm actually mixed on the boat. Although I love the sign of "Don't put us on a freaking prisoner boat," but more importantly, it's a sign of the times. So look, on the boat, at first I was like, oh, that might be kind of cool, like it's like a party boat, but for the whole semester, right? And then one of the kids pointed out all the different downsides of the boat, and including one was kids falling over when they're drunk. And I was like, no, can't be boat. You can't have college kids on a boat. It won't work. Okay, so the boat's got its own issues, right? And one of our producers in the morning meeting said, "Oh, I spent 9 months on a boat." Trust me, sewage is gonna back up. It always does. Okay, and I was like, "Oh, you gotta get off the boat. It's a prisoner boat. Get out, right?" But the boat isn't the issue. The housing is the issue. It's so out. I mean, did you see that stat we just showed you guys? 5 to 20% of the students are homeless in California because housing costs so much. That's crazy. That's the essence of this story. Mark.
Yeah, and there have to be vouchers or some other ways that the universities and educational institutions can, in essence, subsidize that housing, because there is a housing crisis. And yeah, this is not the below deck yacht that you're used to seeing. I mean, nobody's running in with a shrimp cocktail. This is probably, when you're a college kid, to be fair, it could be kind of a novel place to live for a semester, but the reality is, as we just detailed, there are a lot of problems there. But the real issues when it comes to housing and housing prices, I think, have to be solved both with existing housing. There are vacancies, as Ray was detailing, and with vouchers of some kind. The universities have to step up in some ways and get creative about subsidizing housing for their students.
Yeah, and just to that point, Mark, when I graduated undergrad in 2020, and while I was a student at U of I had to sell weed to afford to pay my rent. That was the only way I was going to be able to afford housing, was selling edibles overpriced to frat boys, which, property in Champaign, Illinois is in the middle of a cornfield. It should cost you a pack of gum, but these property management companies have been artificially inflating the prices.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.